right, and welcome back to Journey with the Jays. I'm Jake, and I have with me my co-hosts JB and John. How are we doing tonight, fellas?
Doing well. Big night.
Big night indeed. A lot of sports to cover tonight. So, John, we'll talk about your Heat in a little bit. Don't worry. Let's start with hockey. I'll start things off. Stanley Cup champions have been officially named. Tampa Bay Lightning won in 6 games, which was just about what we expected. We said it would go 6 or 7 games. It went 6 games. I don't know if either of you got to watch that game, but for any of the fans that missed it, for anybody that didn't see it, Lightning just absolutely outplayed the Stars, which did not surprise me in any way. Stars looked sluggish and tired, and just it looked like they couldn't get anything going. Lightning ended up winning. I believe it was 2-0 was the final score. It was a great game. It was a hard-fought series, but the Lightning were just the superior team by far. And it also turned out at the end of the series, we found out Tyler Seguin had been dealing with multiple injuries. The injuries were that of something with his knee, his hip, and his groin. So he had multiple injuries. So that may be a reason he scored no goals in the Stanley Cup Finals. He didn't end up having anything, no points at all, actually. And then I believe since we last spoke, we didn't hear the news about Stamkos. For anybody that didn't see, Stamkos played, I believe, just the one period. I believe it was game 4. I believe it was game 4 Stamkos played. Didn't play the rest of the series. He was unfit to play, according to the team. That was all they provided. They didn't say anything. So I just want to quickly get your reactions on, the fact that the Lightning won the Cup. Was there any surprise with either of that? For either of you, was there any surprise that they ended up winning?
I thought they did a great job defensively. I happened to catch the third period of Game 6. Vasilevsky was on fire. I mean, nothing was getting past him. They stepped up defensively. The Stars were in the zone almost the whole third period, and they still got a shutout. It was just impressive. It was a shame to see Stamkos couldn't be out there in Game 6. But, I give them a lot of credit. They did what had to be done. I'm sure it wasn't easy with the bubble and, not being able to see the families. It was a different kind of year. But, they obviously learned from last year getting swept in the first round and, all their playoff history with their problems. They did a great job coming back this year and winning with the talent they had. John?
Yeah, for me, I guess my takeaway is I believe it was Victor Hedman won the Conn Smythe.
Sure did.
Is that correct?
Sure did.
To me, that's like a defensive player in the NFL winning Super Bowl MVP, which just, really doesn't happen. Usually it's a goaltender or a guy, like a center or something like that typically wins the Conn Smythe. You don't typically see defensemen. So to me, that was pretty cool just to get to see a defenseman actually win that award, because that's a pretty prestigious award, in hockey. So, but I'm not surprised the Lightning won. None of us should be surprised. I mean, they were the better team, and the Stars gave them all they could handle, but the better team won, and kudos to the Lightning for winning their second Stanley Cup.
Yeah, it was. Look, it was well deserved. This team, especially after last year, it felt like they were on a mission this season to really, redeem themselves after what was a pathetic round 1 sweep. I mean, look, it's nothing against Columbus. That they aren't a bad team by any means, but for them to have the Lightning get swept, not even win a game, like let alone lose a series, but not even win a game, was downright pathetic. So good on the Lightning for coming back this season with what felt like a vengeance in the playoffs, just to say, look, okay, last season mistakes were made, things happened, whatever. But it was good to see the Lightning win the season. You know what? It was painful as a Rangers fan to watch a guy like Ryan McDonough, who was once a Rangers captain. It hurt a little bit, I'll be honest. It was not easy watching that, but it was well deserved. This was a team that should have won multiple cups by this point with the talent they have and the way they played over the past few years. I really could have seen them having multiple cups to this point. I don't know about you guys, but for me, I think this is a team that's they got plenty left in the tank and very well could end up with another cup or two, within the next, let's say, 5 to 6 years, realistically. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. I'm sure you guys agree. Am I right?
Without a doubt, with the talent they have, they're a force to be reckoned in the East. Boston's getting older, so they're going to have trouble staying with what they're doing. You're going to have a lot of good younger teams coming up. The Rangers are going to start to get better. Buffalo is going to start to that trend of getting better. But the teams that are up towards the top are really at the point where they're getting older. So it's going to be really Tampa Bay's conference to kind of control for a year or two. And then as we go further, that's when you'll see the younger teams starting to make some noise.
It's funny that you mentioned they're on a revenge tour because right after they got swept by the Blue Jackets, their head coach, I don't know if you heard this story after they won the Stanley Cup the other day, but actually their head coach, after they got swept by the Blue Jackets, went and got a Virginia hat from NCAA college basketball because they got beat by a 16 seed, if you remember, in the NCAA tournament. So he had a hat the entire year, held onto it, showed his team the entire year that because Virginia came back and they ended up, winning and doing really well after that the next year. And they showed that they could come back and, and overcome crushing defeat. So he kind of had that hat as inspiration the entire, as soon as they got swept by the Blue Jackets, he had that hat for his team the entire time, all the way up until they won the Stanley Cup, just to show them, hey, Virginia can do it, so can we. So I thought that was pretty cool hearing that story, that he went to that extreme, and that's, pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I hadn't even heard that, but that's awesome. I mean, you know what? It's a good motivator because they were in the exact same scenario. They were swept, so to speak. They lost their only game, so it's still a sweep of sorts.
They you don't lose to a 16 seed.
Lose to a team they shouldn't lose to, and they should have clobbered. And that's I hadn't heard that, but that's very interesting, and I like it because it's funny. I know for a fact in the post game, I'd heard multiple players talking about that exact championship that UVA lost and then came back and won. So I hadn't known that, but it's cool to hear that he did that. It's clearly was their big motivation for the season, I'm sure.
So, question for you guys: do you feel that pro athletes should need something like that to motivate them, or do you feel that they have it in them and that's just a good backstory now?
Well, here's what I will say. You have to remember that they're only human. And I hate to put it like that, but that is what it is. They can only motivate themselves, by themselves so much. And sometimes when a team, especially like the Blue Jackets in that case, maybe the Tampa Bay Lightning weren't there mentally all the way. Something must have been off, obviously. But sometimes you need that extra push to help you get in that right mindset to really push yourself to the edge. And sometimes that's what you need to do. So, they may be able to push themselves to a certain extent. But things like this, especially after that loss, I don't think was as much of a motivation factor, but more of an example of what they could be if they put their best foot forward. So while yes, that is a sort of motivation, I don't think it was necessarily meant as just motivation. It feels like it was more, okay, here's an example of a team that did basically exactly what we did. Now let's go out there and do what they did as well. Let's prove that we can do that as well. And proving that they could go out there and win was the motivation. That was just a story to almost follow in a sense. That's
and inspire them.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Because you always hear the win one for the Gipper speech and different things and all this motivational stuff. But, I wonder when you get to that level, how much is just hyperbole and how much is just, guys going out there and doing what they're supposed to do.
Sometimes you get complacent. Now, in any job, let alone sports, you can get complacent and you sometimes just need that, whether it's a kick in the butt or whatever it is. Sometimes you need that to just kind of fuel you, or motivate you or whatever it is.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the thing is, a high school or college player might need that motivation, right? We all can agree that they might need that sort of motivation. But what's the real difference between the college and the pros or the high schools and the pros? And what I mean by that, you're still playing against other people that are on the exact same level as you. They have earned the right to be where they are. College athletes earn the right to be on that college team. High school athletes earn the right to be on that high school team. Pro athletes do the same thing. So yes, they're at the pros and they should be motivated to an extent, but they're, again, still human, and they're still playing against people with the same amount of drive and talent and whatever, that can match them. So they still need some sort of motivation, if you ask me, because they're going out and doing the same thing just on a higher level as a college or a high school. It's the same concept. It's just at a higher level now. But the point of that you're playing against someone that is on the same level as you, sometimes you need that extra push to get over the hump, so to speak.
Interesting.
Yep.
That's just that's just the feeling I would get, because I was a high school athlete. That's nothing like being a pro athlete. I know that. But I do understand that playing against another team on the same level as you, you sometimes need that extra push to try and help you get over the hump to really get that kick in the butt to go beat them and go win.
No, I think everybody, handles things differently. I think some people do need that motivation for sure. I think that's a coach's job. A coach is kind of like a teacher, a psychologist. Everybody's different. But, I'm thinking if you're at the highest level, you shouldn't necessarily need that. But then again, there are people too, like you said, Jake. So no question about it. It's a cool story.
That's awesome. And look, it's just, go ahead, John.
I was going to say, before we move on to the next sport, I do want to get your thoughts a little bit on Henrik Lundqvist, because that's a big thing for you.
Just going to bring that up next. Yes, I was just going to bring up the Rangers have decided to buy out the last year on Henrik Lundqvist's contract. So my thoughts on it are this: as a fan, I am so sad and so hurt on the inside. It sucks because I compare him to a guy like Derek Jeter. He was one of the best, if not the best, at his position for almost a decade or more. Henrik Lundqvist was one of the best goalies for 15 straight seasons now, and he's been amazing. And so as a fan, it hurts because I grew up watching him, and he was my goalie. And for me, when you say the King of New York, I think of Henrik Lundqvist. That's what I've grown up knowing. Now, that's my opinion as a fan. Now, looking at it in a more analytical way, looking at it from the team's perspective, I 1000% understand it, and I agree with the decision. Henrik Lundqvist is getting older. He is not at the level he used to be at. He's clearly kind of slowly dropping off in his levels of production, so to speak. And more importantly, the Rangers have a fantastic young goalie in Igor Shesterkin. That kid is supposed to be the next Henrik Lundqvist. I've seen him play, I think maybe a dozen games or so, and in the games he's played, he was wonderful. He was a very good goalie, and the Rangers are saying, "Look, we trust this guy." It's like an NFL team saying, "We have our new quarterback. We're going to trust him. We're going to put him in the spotlight and say, here you go." And then the reason the Rangers are not keeping Lundqvist as a backup is probably for the money, because he probably had he's going to be owed a large sum of money for a backup, especially. And more importantly, the Rangers do have Alex Georgiev, who is another decent young goalie, or on the younger side at least. I mean, Lundqvist is 38. I believe Georgiev might be in his mid to late 20s, so he's still on the younger side, and they feel more comfortable with him in the as the backup, and they don't want to get rid of him. So I completely understand it. So again, as a fan, it hurts, but looking at it from the team's perspective, it completely makes sense. And I think ultimately it was the right decision, because especially knowing this team is trying to move in a younger direction. You see their team, they're getting younger. They're trying to make a younger core so they can be on a playoff push and a Stanley Cup push for the next 5, 6, 7 years possibly.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the end of an era. I had to deal with it in the 90s with the Yankees when Don Mattingly wasn't re-signed. And that hurt me for a while, and we won, 3 straight World Series. It kind of bothered me as a fan because Don Mattingly was always my favorite player, but, he didn't get to experience 1996. We had Tito Martinez, who was great, but it wasn't Don Mattingly to me.
It's right.
So I understand it perfectly, and it's kind of the business of sports.
Yeah, that's the one problem about sports. It's a business in the end. Exactly. Got to do what's best for the business. So, like I said, it was the right decision. And when I look at it, I've seen this coming for months now. I mean, I knew when we saw Shesterkin come in and start playing at the level he was playing, I knew right then and there Lundqvist was gone. I've known this for probably 5-6 months now. It was just the reality of it finally happening. It sucked. There's no other way to put it. It sucked. But it is what it is. And the truth is, my hope is now, as much as this might be selfish, I hope Lundqvist retires. I don't think he will because he's such a competitor. And having watched him all these years, I don't think he's going to do that. He'll probably try and go out and get on another team and do something. And there are teams out there that might be able to use him that are in need of a short-term goalie or to help mentor a young goalie that they have on their team. It could very well happen. But as a fan, I hope he retires. I really do.
Yeah,
I could definitely understand that. I mean, that's what I saw with Mattingly. It kind of hurt. Eli, the same thing. Another perfect example.
Exactly. It's all the same. It's just an icon in his city, in his sport. So that's all it is. John, anything else? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Nope. What is our? I guess what's in line next for us for sports wise?
So let's go NFL real quick. Let's
right. We'll make this quick.
Let's talk about the whole COVID situation down in Tennessee and how the NFL is looking to play the game on Monday. They finally announced they're not going to play on Sunday, and they're thinking about Monday.
Possibly Tuesday, I heard as well.
Yeah, with Tennessee's facility being closed till at the minimum Saturday. How is Tennessee supposed to legitimately get ready for this game and be ready to go and put up, a fair fight against the Steelers when they can't even go into their facility and practice or play?
Well, here's what I'll say. It's not going to be fair against the Steelers because the Steelers are going to be rested particularly well. They're obviously going to have the extra few days. However, what the NFL is thinking is this. If you play on a Sunday and then you play on a Thursday, right? They're going to get Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, game day Thursday. What they're saying is Saturday, Sunday, Monday, play Tuesday. That's the fourth day, just like it would be if you played on a Sunday and a Thursday. I'm not saying it's fair because you're going to have the Steelers that are extremely well rested now. However, what they're saying is if we let them back in on Saturday and then they play Monday or Tuesday, it's going to be a similar rest time, or rather a similar practice time to what it would be for a Thursday night game. But the problem is they're going to both be well rested. They're going to be equally rested, actually. But the problem is the Steelers are going to have the extra time to prepare, which is likely going to end up hurting Tennessee in a game that they already, in my opinion, were likely going to lose anyway because the Steelers are just a very talented team. I think it would have been a good game, but the Steelers likely would have pulled that one out and won. So I don't think it's entirely fair. However, I understand the logic of what the NFL is attempting to do. And the other problem is I'm not sure how they would handle it in terms of what would they do to reschedule this game? How would they reschedule it is the next question, which is why I think their hand is almost forced to do what they're doing, which while it's not fair, they don't get much of a choice.
The NFL schedule doesn't allow for makeups. You can't do a doubleheader. Right. It's not like baseball. So I get that. I just don't see how you could expect Tennessee to be in a fair situation to play this game. That's my opinion, John.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've been saying it, since this news broke. There's no way Tennessee physically is going to be ready. I know they're trying to make it where Tennessee is going to have virtual game plans, but it's not the same. It's not the same as going through walkthroughs and practicing, in person and hitting each other. It's not the same. Your body hasn't been hit all week. Think about a player that doesn't practice all week, and then they expect that player to go out and play Sunday, which happens. Typically, those players don't quite look like themselves on Sunday because they haven't practiced all week. There's a reason why coaches don't typically let players play when they haven't practiced the entire week. There's a reason for that. It's because they're not ready. And I hope, regardless of who wins, I hope that there's no injuries that come of this or from this. That's my biggest thing is, are players going to suffer and end up injured because they did not practice the entire week, a whole team didn't, and then the Steelers did, and the Steelers come out and manhandle them. And I know they're professional athletes, so their bodies are already in shape and stuff like that. But still, taking a week off essentially, and then going to play the Pittsburgh Steelers or any team, and as physical as the NFL is, that's a lot to ask for anybody's body, even if you're a professional. Still, these are human beings, and that's a lot to ask a body to go and get hit after being off the entire week.
It'll be interesting to see what happens. Now let's go to the next topic, Atlanta and Chicago. Let's talk about that game for a bit. Atlanta, again, out to a huge lead. The Bears pull Trubisky, and we're going to bring up Trubisky again on the show. So they pull him. They put in Nick Foles, the career backup who only wins when he's a backup. And they come back and beat Atlanta, who can't hold the lead for anything. Should the Bears have stayed with Trubisky, who came back against Detroit in week 1? Or, did they make the right move, bringing in Foles? And secondly, what is going on in Atlanta with all the talent there that they can't hold leads? That this is 2 weeks in a row, they blew huge leads.
I think putting Trubisky on the bench was the right move. When you're playing as poorly as he was all game, yes, he came back against Detroit. Yeah, that happened. But clearly the coaches said, okay, I'm seeing something that says he can't be in this game. And clearly it worked. It was clearly the right move. Because here is, I think, the way the coaches do look at this. Trubisky hasn't played well since the first half of the Giants game. He had been playing poorly for 4 or 5 quarters straight, right? He was playing relatively poorly. And what the coaches are saying is this. We're down, and we're already going to lose this game unless something changes. We know we have a good backup that we are comfortable putting in this game. That's why he's our backup. That's why we signed this guy to be the backup, because we know he can be the starter if need be. The worst thing that would have happened, and I know the coaches clearly must have realized this, the worst thing that happens, they lose the game, and they go on to the next week and figure out what they want to do the next week. That's the absolute worst. The best, Foles goes out there, shows them something, either brings the game closer, wins the game, does whatever. That's the best case scenario. But the worst case scenario really wasn't bad for them because they were already losing that game, and the game was what they felt like probably out of hand. They just wanted to get Trubisky out of the game and see if Foles could make any difference, and also probably wanted to see if Foles, could be a starter if need be in this offense. If he could really handle the offense and do his job, because they haven't seen him in this offense because there was no preseason. As for Atlanta, I think it's completely coaching right now. It is as simple as that. Dan Quinn is supposed to be a defensive-minded coach. He was a defensive coordinator before this, so obviously that's how he got his job. So he should be able to coach defense. Ever since the Falcons lost to the Patriots in the Super Bowl, they are under 500. I think it's like 24 and 26. It's something like that. It's like 20-something and 20-something, I believe, and they haven't, and they're below 500. They've been terrible since. So something happened in that game and has continued to happen and it clearly goes back to Dan Quinn, because that was a defensive, mess up and fall apart as well. Dan Quinn needs to go, first of all. And they need to, second of all, bring in now a coach that, I don't care if he's defensive-minded or not. I don't care who he is. But they need to change the scenery, because whatever Dan Quinn is doing with this team is not working. And the big problem is the offense isn't the problem. It's the defense. The offense goes out there and does their job. Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, now Todd Gurley, they're doing their job. And I'm not worried about the offense, but something needs to change with that defense. And I don't think it's the personnel on the defense. It comes down to the coaching for me, from what I'm seeing, because, again, since Dan Quinn's meltdown with that defense in the Super Bowl, they've been under 500. They've been terrible. Something needs to change, because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. That's what the Falcons keep doing, getting these huge leads, keeping the same coach, and not doing anything to change it, and still losing.
To say the least.
They not only is it the bad head coaching, but special teams too. I mean, that Cowboys game, how do you not pick up an onside kick? You don't have to wait for it to go 10 yards. It can go 1 yard, and you can pick up the onside kick as the team that's receiving the ball. the Cowboys have to wait for it to go 10 yards, but the Falcons don't. You can pick it up as soon as that ball's kicked. You can run up and pick it up as soon as it's kicked. And they stood around and watched it and waited for it to go 10 yards. That's bad coaching. That's bad. The special teams coach should have been gone. Head coach should have been gone. You can't have a blunder like that. You had a 99% chance to win that game, and you lost. You had a 99% chance to win the Bears game with that big lead, and you lost. There's no excuse for that. Dan Quinn he's clearly not meant for a head coaching job. He should be gone. Like you said, the offense isn't the problem. It's the defense. It's the special teams. It's the mistakes. It's the little things. And you need a head coach that can. There's no discipline on that team. I think Eric Bieniemy should be the next coach of that team. I would love Eric Bieniemy to be able to take over that team.
Excellent point. I think I agree 100%.
I can't wait for him to get a head coaching job, by the way.
Now, going to the game of the week, in my opinion, the Rams against the Bills.
Absolutely.
You know, the Bills up 28-3. There's something about that number, that lead, that's just not very healthy. It's like a 2-0 lead in hockey. Watching that game, I kind of felt like it could be a Super Bowl preview. Not that the Bills could make it, but they showed me something this game. The heart that they showed holding off the Rams when the Rams came back, I was impressed. What did you guys think of Buffalo?
JB, you must be reading my mind today, because not only when you said game of the week did I think the Bills, before you said Super Bowl preview, I was thinking the same thing. I'm not saying that those are teams that are going to be in the Super Bowl, but there is a chance with the way Josh Allen has been playing. I'd like to first talk about that offense. I don't think enough people are talking about it. I understand how great Russell Wilson's been playing, and I know how great Aaron Rodgers has been playing. And obviously Patrick Mahomes is always going to be now in the discussion for MVP. But if I had to choose a dark horse MVP right now, there is no doubt, as a dark horse, it is Josh Allen all the way. He has been unbelievable. One of the best quarterbacks, as a dark horse, because obviously there are the obvious picks I mentioned. This is a guy that he might end up 5th, 6th in the voting, and he deserves it. He has been unbelievable. And that defense, I don't like that they gave up so many points. I think they're a good defense. I think they need to tighten up a little bit more. But I want to give credit to the Rams, actually, because that offense has been firing on all cylinders this season. They have looked incredible. And for me, if that defense of theirs, if the Rams defense can tighten up, they could be a serious contender coming from the NFC. They look as good as anybody on offense right now. It's going to come down to, can their defense tighten up? The Bills, I don't know what happened that they broke down like that. That is not what I expected. I get they're playing a good offense. I expected a little bit more from them, but I will say it was a fantastic game, and it was easily game of the week. I agree. I really am looking forward to hopefully seeing the Rams in the playoffs, because I would love to see like Rams versus Seahawks or Packers. I'd love to see that kind of a matchup and see how that goes. And then in the AFC, I don't think this would ever happen, in terms of the Bills win, but I would still love to see Bills versus Chiefs at some point. I would love that, just to see how legit Josh Allen is against a contender like Patrick Mahomes.
And not to mention, clearly the Ravens are not beating the Chiefs. We saw that.
Not even close.
So just wipe that thought away that the Ravens are going to beat the Chiefs and get to the Super Bowl, because that ain't happening. I don't know who's beating the Chiefs. That team just looks looks insane. The Bills have to win a playoff game first. Let's stop with the Super Bowl talk. Stop with all that. They have to win a playoff game. When's the last time they won a playoff game? When Jim Kelly was the quarterback and they were in a Super Bowl, lost 4 Super Bowls in a row. So let's just, hold on. Them winning, going to the Super Bowl. They have to win a playoff game first. They haven't shown they can win a playoff game. They are the Bills still, and the Bills do Bills things, but much like the Browns do Browns things, and the Flyers do Flyers things. You have those teams that just do those things. the Bills are still one of those teams until they prove otherwise. And they're in our division, so I'm not quite in yet. So, we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that the Ravens will be fine come playoff time. I think
Oh,
that
but
losing to
Chiefs wise, not
think
They're
too
not being
sure.
Chiefs.
but listen, losing to the Chiefs in week 2 like that, that's a wake-up call. You have 14 weeks to fix it, 15 weeks to fix it. That's the best thing that can happen to them. That's like a gift.
It wasn't just a loss. The Chiefs toyed
No,
with them. The
Oh,
Chiefs
yeah.
that's
toyed with
great.
them the
But
entire night.
think about it. You know what? It happened in week 2. You have 15 weeks to prepare before the playoffs. Let it happen early.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but they
Get
toyed with
killed.
them.
That's
It
fine.
wasn't like they
No,
were in
let
the
it
same
happen.
game.
Listen, a loss is a loss, a loss. It doesn't matter.
It
Now,
counts as a
you're-
loss on the sheet in the end, no matter what. You're right.
But it's
Right.
scary that the Chiefs were able to just toy with the
the Chiefs
Baltimore
are
Ravens
phenomenal.
in their own stadium. That's scary. And Patrick Mahomes, apparently his quote that they played during that game, they played a quote that he had recently made. He said, "I'm not even close to where I think I can be as an NFL player." That's scary. If Patrick Mahomes doesn't think he's even close to his potential.
But take two things out of this, right? If you're a good NFL coach, right, you lose in week 2 to a team that could win the Super Bowl.
They just
Or
won.
that just won the Super Bowl, right? That's a great thing because they're the team you're looking to beat. Now you've seen them play, you see what they do. If you're a good coach, it's your job to fix what you can do to beat them. That doesn't mean you will or you won't, but now you have every opportunity to gear up for that. You have the film with your guys against theirs.
You've seen them 3 years in a row, and they beat you 3 years in a row. So you have film on them, and they've beaten you 3 straight years now.
Different team, different year, but
still Patrick Mahomes.
And to say
all 3
playing
years
at home nowadays, there's no fans, so there's no crowd noise. So the home thing doesn't really matter, But getting down to it, my thoughts on it, if they have a shot, that was the best thing to have it happen early. It's a wake up call, and now they have a shot. I don't think they're going to beat the Chiefs anyway, but that's the only way that they would. That's the best scenario for them is that happens.
It's their kryptonite. I think the Chiefs are just their kryptonite.
Well, here's what I will say with what JB is saying, and I do agree. They have played the Chiefs, I believe, in each of the years only in the playoffs. I could be wrong. I don't think
they played them in the regular season.
Let me rephrase that.
Yeah,
they played them in the regular season and then not in the playoffs. I believe. I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. But they only played them once in the season, so it would be either playoffs or regular season, but not both in the same season.
Right.
So the advantage is this. They now have this exact team because each team is obviously different each year. They have the team from exactly this year, and they have now 15 plus weeks before they probably play them, right, to now prepare for this exact roster, this exact team. So I'm not saying that you're wrong, John, because I do agree with what you're saying. I get what you're trying to say. But to JB's point, what he's trying to say and what I do agree with is this. This was the perfect time because they know the exact players, this exact roster and everything, and now they have all this time to prepare as opposed to just having film of them. They have now actually gone head-to-head, 1v1 with these guys in this season and potentially could now play them in the playoffs. So now they have a literal feel for how they play in the season. So when they play against them, they have a real feel of when they actually play them, of how they're going to play, because it's not just watching, it was actually physically experiencing it.
Who says they end up playing in the AFC Championship?
I'm not saying
they're not right now. They're not even the best team in that division.
I'm just simply saying if that is to happen, if that scenario happens, that is an advantage to the Ravens. I will give them.
They have to get by the Steelers first. They have to get by Pittsburgh first. Pittsburgh looks really good.
That is a whole other issue. But I'm just saying, in the event that they do play each other, this is an advantage that they have compared to previous seasons. That's all I'm getting at. So I do agree with JB on that. They have that advantage just this season compared to others. But we don't know if they're going to play them. You're right. There's no way to know until it happens.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what I think about. Let's talk about our fantasy league so far. Real quick before we wrap up football. So, I have the best 0-3 team ever in the history of fantasy football, just so it's out there on tape and live. There's nobody that's ever got 0-3 with a team as good as mine. So if you're 0-3 right now, you're not the best 0-3 ever.
So if you're 0-3, feel worse about being 0-3 is what he's saying.
Yeah,
Exactly.
really. If you're not
Yeah.
JP, feel bad about being 0-3. I would just like to say this to anybody that is hearing JB right now. He's so good at being 0-3 that he started Julio Jones while injured and didn't realize, and I then proceeded to tell him because I played him this week after the fact because I wanted to win.
Smart
But the good news is it wouldn't have mattered because Kamara went off. And who's your other running back?
True. What?
Who else do you have at running back that went off?
Eckler. I had Eckler and
Kamara. Yeah.
I had a very good week. I
mean, those two guys alone with like two other guys could have beat my team. So it didn't really matter.
No.
That's why, again, the best 0-3 ever. So next week it'll be 1-3, then 2-3 until it's championship at 3. But that's besides the point.
I'm 3-0. I came back in my game, won by 5, and I'm the leader of the league right now. So, everybody laughed at me on Thursday night. I just want to throw it out there about starting Gardner Minshew. And I still ended up winning, even though I started Gardner Minshew, got 9 points. So I'm happy. 3-0, top of the league still, and haven't been stopped yet.
Well, I'm gonna just interrupt you. Let's also give Perch Gridiron some props for being 3-0. Also tops in the league,
even without Barkley. He lost Saquon Barkley.
Losing Barkley, and then we got a couple of people 2-1. We got 3 teams out there 2-1, so a lot of good action going on in the fantasy league. Just keep in mind, you're all going to lose because 0-3 becomes championship in 3. You heard it here first.
To any fans that are currently listening live, don't listen to JB. He's losing his mind. He's 0-3. He's going to end up losing this league and probably lose every single game. Anybody that has a question, though, leave it in the comments, and we can get to it another time. Just throw that out there. Anybody that happens to be listening, if you have fantasy questions, we'll move on. But if you have a fantasy question and we notice it, we'll gladly answer whatever you have. So with that, John, you want to talk about baseball?
Yeah, so baseball playoffs started yesterday. A little bit of update on the playoffs. I don't have the scores in front of me right now, like the current scores. I know there were a lot of games going on. If you guys could look that up. But the Twins ended up getting swept by the Astros, so the Twins are gone. The Blue Jays ended up getting swept. The Buffalo Blue Jays got swept by the Rays. You guys didn't believe in the Rays earlier in the year. Now you're wrong. Just want to throw it out there. Swept the Buffalo Blue Jays right out of the playoffs. You're wrong about the Rays. So Yankees looked really good in game 1. I believe they were losing in game 2, but there was a rain delay.
It's 4-1 currently. Currently 4-1.
Bottom of 2.
Indians.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so that'll be an interesting series. I still believe the Yankees end up winning that series. The Marlins got their first playoff win, I believe, is in 17 years today. So kudos to the Marlins for.
I want to throw this out there. Marlins win the World Series. There's one reason. Every time the Marlins have ever made the playoffs, they've won the World Series. Gotta keep the
That's
team
what
alive.
it seems.
Just saying. They've made the playoffs twice. That's 2 World Series wins. Let's make it 3.
And they always dismantle their team after.
Hey, if they win a World Series, who cares?
No, thank you.
The Braves won in 13 innings, 1-0 over the Reds. Are they still doing the guy on second base in extra innings for playoffs?
No, regular rules, thankfully.
That would have been awful.
That was the first thing I looked for when we got to the 10th. It was a great game. It was 0-0. That
would have ruined it
really well.
Oh yeah.
It was a fun game to watch. It really was. It was a shame that nobody was able to score, but good pitching, fun to watch. The Braves will do what the Braves do at some point in the playoffs. They'll implode, so it's just a matter of when.
But Bauer went 7 innings, 2 hits, 11 Ks, no runs. Bauer's he's good, man. Like good, he's good stuff. So yeah, that's kind of what's going on in the playoffs of the White Sox. And the A's are at 1-1 now. If the A's ended up winning game 2 today.
Yeah, it was a bad day for Chicago.
Yeah, so that's going to come down to the final, deciding game 3, between them. So that's kind of what's happening in baseball. a lot of. I mean, it's fun to get to see all these playoff games in one day. That's really cool. I actually kind of dig this like 8 team on each side because it's more excitement for baseball. It's more excitement for the playoffs. It makes it more fun. I feel like you're more kind of like the NCAA tournament with all those teams playing. It's chaos, and there's more going on and more to talk about, on social media and stuff. So I kind of like this whole 8 team on each side thing. It's more going on, more chaos, and that's better in sports. Chaos.
I like it with the 3 games because
Yeah.
the one game thing I can't deal with. That was horrible last year.
No.
The Nationals quarter break.
But
the World
the
Series.
best of 3 is quick. It's in and
Yeah.
out, done.
Yeah.
And I can deal with that. Let the better team have the home field for 3 games, and we move on. I have no issues with that. I like it.
It's more fair because you know what? It's really not fair to say, okay, your whole season rides on one game. Because you look at last night, Cleveland had a bad game. Now Cleveland's beating the Yankees 4-1. Is it really fair for the Yankees to have won, and moved on just because Cleveland had a bad night? No. Would it be fair for the Yankees to lose right now because they're having an off night so far? That wouldn't be fair either. It's fair to have 3 games. You go out there, put your season on the line. You have multiple chances to win. That's how it should be done.
The White Sox look like world beaters last night. And today they didn't. They got beat by the A's, and now it's best of 3 last game. So I mean, you're right. I completely agree with you on that.
I've always hated that they always did the one. And look, if there's one thing they keep going from this season on is this. I don't care I don't want them to keep anything else. They can get rid of all this, the stupid, extra inning rules, all that junk. They can get rid of it. I don't care if they do the regular playoffs, but only the wild card has a 3-game series. Not everybody's in the wild card.
Right.
To a regular format, but for the wild card, as long as the wild card 3 games, I'd love that because this is how it should be. The only sport that should have 1-game playoffs is football. It's a lot less games. It would be ridiculously long playoffs if you tried to do a series. It's the only sport that should ever be a non-series, to have your season on the line. Only one that's fair, in my opinion.
I said it before. You can't play 162 games and then your season comes down to 1 game. Like JB said a million times, 1 bad bounce after 162 games in 1 game, 1 bad bounce costs you that entire season. That's not right. No way.
Right.
Imagine if the 86 World Series had been 1 game and Bill Buckner's play, was that Game 6 was the only game of the World Series. That was it. Do or die. And that was the play. Can you imagine? And you can think of many other baseball games.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's a bad way of doing it.
Yeah. So they definitely should take this into consideration. It's more games, more money potentially for the league because when fans come next year, it's all fans are going to be attending these short series, and that's fun for the game. These little series because every game in a short 3-game series, every game matters. In a 7-game series, every game matters, but you can still come back. But in a best of 3, you better be on your A game, in that tiny little series. So I think it's fun.
It's fun because it adds pressure too. Because you know what, team that wins the first game, next game's automatically an elimination game, just like that. And that's going to bring viewers in. They're going to be, elimination game. They're going to get excited. And then if it goes to game 3, it's still an elimination game. Now it's do or die. People are going to love that. The only game that doesn't matter, so to speak, is then game 1. But it's still going to draw fans, of baseball. And then after that, people that are slightly lesser fans are going to love the idea of the elimination being on that game. And it's more fun that way. And I agree. The money is, how could they say no to that? All these leagues, all they want is money. We all know that. We joke about it, but it's true. All the major sports leagues just want money. So here you go, make more money.
Not only that, look at how many teams were involved in the National League till like the last weekend. I think there were only like 3 teams eliminated in the National League. The American League was a little bit more kind of dry, but the National League, almost everybody was involved. So that's great.
And that makes it fun. Yeah.
Especially in a 162-game season. I like to go back and look at last year and see how when you had teams eliminated, just to see how it would play out for how long in the season it was how many teams involved.
The only thing I don't want them to do is I don't want them to keep this hockey thing that they have. Because hockey has that thing where there's 8 teams, but it's the top 3 teams in this division, top 3 teams in that division, then 2 wild cards. And baseball does it top 2 teams in each of the 3 divisions, then the 2 best records outside of the Blue Jays and Rays. Then the Yankees have the best record out of everybody that's not the top 2 in each division. I don't like that. I think it should just be the top 5 teams with the best records outside of division winners in that conference, in that league. I think that's more fun because it creates more chaos.
Yeah. The NBA way.
Yeah. I
agree.
But I'm not complaining. This is still good. I like that baseball's trying to get more into 2020 and not in 1950.
Well, some things were hit and miss. I mean, the runner on second base, horrible.
Yeah.
The three batters for the reliever, horrible.
But at least
Universal
you tried
DH.
it.
Universal DH is fine. I don't like it, but I can live with it.
I prefer that. It makes the game.
I do too.
Yeah, I prefer that. I hate pitchers don't want to bat, so why put them up there?
But I'm old school. I like managers managing double switches and things like that. But I can live with the universal DH. That's fine. It's baseball at least. The runner on second, the 3 batters. That's horrible.
The only thing that they need to fix going into next season as well. Last thing, you need to get rid of the overshift. You should not be able to overshift. I'll say this forever. I hate that thing. I hate the overshift. Stay on your side. Your shortstop, you should be at the shortstop position. Third base should be at third base. There should be none of this goofy overshift. I hate it. I just had to throw that in there because I absolutely hate that.
I don't disagree.
All right. So we got a little bit of time left. So basketball just started about 20 minutes ago. So that game's early in the game. Heat, Lakers. Obviously you guys probably think Lakers, but I guess give me your thoughts on the series. I mean, I'm excited. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Look, I'm choosing Lakers because I think just on paper they're just a better team. And it's no disrespect to the Heat because, John, you know this. I said they'd win the last series and they did. I like the Heat to win just because it would be something different. It would be something exciting because, Jimmy Butler would win. That would be awesome. It would obviously not be LeBron again. That would be nice. And the Lakers wouldn't get another championship. We don't need that fan base getting yet another championship. I agree. But here is the problem. As great as they have been playing, the Heat have looked awesome. I think it's going to be a good series. I get the feeling that, the Lakers are going to be the better team in the end and they're going to win. But I do feel that the Heat have a lot of heart. They've been playing really good ball. They're going to make it a series. I'm not going to sit here and say, it's going to be a sweep. That would be ridiculous. That would be asinine of me to say to that. However, I get the feeling probably 6 games and it'll go Lakers. I'm not going to sit here and say that that the Heat are not going to win any games. 5-6 games at most. I don't see it going 7. Lakers take it. Just being a better team. It's just it you know what? It reminds me of the Stanley Cup Finals that we just saw, right? The Stars are like the Heat. They shouldn't be as far as they are. They got really hot, played really well, but then the team that should win inevitably wins just because they're the better team. I'm afraid to say that that's probably going to happen here as well.
So just a quick update while you're speaking. The Heat are up 18-10 early in the first quarter, about halfway through. I think that the Heat will make it a series. I think it'll be over in 6. From what I've seen and what I've gotten to people, I'm thinking that the problem with the Heat is they have too many guys on offense that can score, and it makes it really difficult to guard them. I had Gerald on my podcast on Monday on the program, and we were talking about it. The Heat just have so many different options between Bam, Butler, Dragic. It just goes on and on. There's so many guys to stop, and that's what killed the Celtics, and that's going to make it difficult for the Lakers. But, the Lakers have the intangible. They have LeBron. There's only one of him. Whether I like him or not, there's only one LeBron. So that's where I think the Lakers take it in 6.
The problem that I think the Lakers run into is and I said this on the show I was on last night, if AD or LeBron have a bad night, who's going to be that second guy that night that steps up on the Lakers? Who's going to be the guy that steps up even if both of those guys have a good night? Because they can't carry the team entire 7-game series. I just don't see both of them. They need the role players to step up, and I don't. If you're looking at it from a Lakers standpoint, I don't trust anybody on that team outside of AD and LeBron to step up and a guy you believe will come through and can come through. The only guys is AD and LeBron. I don't believe in anybody else or trust anybody else. And that's the problem I think that the Lakers could run into is, like JB said, the Heat have so many different people that you don't have to have Jimmy Butler or Harrow or whoever have a good night. It's all of them. So who do you choose to stop? Pick your poison. Whereas the Lakers, you know who you have to stop. And if you do that and you force Rajon Rondo or Kuzma to step up, do you really trust those guys to step up? That the Heat have the depth, the Lakers don't. And so that'll be interesting to see if the Lakers' depth can match the Heat's. Because if the Heat bench continues to play the way they have, and the Lakers don't get production out of anybody else, essentially, besides those two, it's not a series. The Heat will beat them. The Heat have the better head coach. Frank Vogel is not a great coach. He was in Indiana. He was a pretty good coach, but never quite the guy, Eric Spoelstra was, if I'm being honest. I never loved Frank Vogel. Like I said, he was always good in Indiana, but never great. So the fact that they've gotten this far says a lot about AD and LeBron. But like I said, if the Lakers role players don't step up, it's not going to be a series for the Lakers. They're going to get beat and beat bad. The Lakers need somebody to step up, need another X factor. It's not fair to 35-year-old LeBron to say, hey, do it for us against this team of, bunch of different guys and not just one superstar. That's how I feel.
Well, the question is going to be, are they going to be able to shut down LeBron and AD? Or do you really think they're going to be able to? I mean that more or less rhetorically. I mean, you can answer if you like, but I just, I mean it like, that's really what it comes down to. Are they going to really be able to do that? Are they going to be able to step up to do that? That's going to be the question.
But in any sport, you need role players.
No, absolutely. I don't disagree.
Yeah.
Here we go. Just since we've been talking, when I looked at the score first, it was 16-10. It's 23-10 now. So obviously they're stopping LeBron and AD to start. So the question is, can they do it, for 4 quarters? And they definitely seem to be starting off well.
And the Lakers aren't a team that I feel is going to just roll over and die, even if they're behind big, much like the Heat against the Celtics. So it's the game's far from over. LeBron can hit 12 points, at the snap of a finger. He can drill 12 points just like that, and boom, it's a game again. So that my point is, you really, if you're a Lakers fan, got to ask yourself who is going to bring it besides those two guys. Really need somebody to step up. I don't trust Kuzma. I don't. Rondo's had playoff experience and he's won a championship with the Celtics before. But scoring-wise, there's just not a whole lot depth-wise on that team. So both teams have their question marks, Yeah,
no. Well, look, it's going to be a good series, and the Heat are coming out hot. No puns or jokes intended there. But they're doing exactly what I expected, which is they're going to come out with a lot of heart. I continue to talk about that. Again, I said that's their biggest advantage. They're a hot team. They're playing well. So
my question out of John is Vogel the reverse Spoelstra effect? Because, kind of the same thing. LeBron. Go ahead.
So Spoelstra always took care of Vogel when they played the Pacers and Paul George there. So he has had Vogel's number clearly in the playoffs because they played the Pacers when the Pacers were good. For a couple years in a row, they beat the Pacers every year back when they had LeBron and all them. The Pacers were never able to beat them in the playoffs, obviously, because the Heat had 4 straight NBA finals with Wade and all them, and LeBron and Bosh.
Fair point.
I hear you. I just, I'm not really too high on Spoelstra, but, Mark Jackson said it. So,
but the better coach is clearly Spoelstra in this series.
Well,
but
yeah,
better
I'm not
players
gonna.
may end up winning it.
Yeah,
The
ultimately
higher
it's the
talent may be
players.
the that wins this series. I will say.
Yeah, I don't think that Spoelstra is definitely the better coach. I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
With these two.
Heat in 6.
So
Oof.
I don't know. I don't know about that one, but I think we're just about out of time. Anyone have anything else?
No, I
Nope.
think we're okay.
I want to
So
thank our fans. I want to thank just give our go rounds on thanking our fans for commenting. Everybody watching, we really appreciate all that you do. Thank you very much, Mark Barry. Thank you for providing us with the music as always.
Yes,
JB, anything
AMG
else?
Music. Yeah, AMG Music and Mark Berry. Big shout out to you guys. Thank you. All the fans out there, remember, if you ever want to be 0-3 with style, follow my team. Best 0-3 team ever. You could be number 2, but you can't be the best. But it was fun. Hockey's done. We're hoping for a game 7 tonight. Didn't happen. Got the Lakers Heat starting the Heat on fire to start. Yankees take an early lead. Game 1. Game 2, we're having trouble, but there's lots of baseball to go. It's going to be fun. And God only knows what happens with football with the Titans. So we'll see.
We'll definitely be talking about all of this next week. That is for sure. So if you like you're liking what you hear, stay tuned for next week because I promise you this will all be things we talk about. Anything else, guys?
Continue to follow us on all of our social media, YouTube, Twitch. You can search Perch Sports Gaming. That's my other show that I do, but it's also tied to Journey with the Jays. You can Facebook, Journey with the Jays, Instagram, Journey with the Jays, Twitter, what is it? Journey
with the 3.
Journey with the 3 at the bottom. Yep. So all of our social media, go ahead and check that out and share and subscribe and like and all that stuff.
And the program on the Believe Network as well.
Yes.
Here's some great interviews. But yeah, that's about it, guys. It's been fun. Also, John, the Carousel, the NFL show. Definitely check that out. It's a very interesting show on Fantasy of Flavors. Myself and Jon Shearer are on there. I'm the correspondent for the Chargers, and John is for the Ravens. Definitely check us out on there. You guys have a great night, though. We'll see you next week.